Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's presentation, Rainforest Giants, Uganda's Mountain Gorillas, is brought to you by NatHab Expedition Leader Rich de Gouveia. A little bit more about our presenter. Rich began his career as an environmental consultant before becoming a safari guide in Greater Kruger National Park and spending 5 years at Sabi Sabi Private Game Reserve, where he became assistant head ranger. Since 2014, he's worked as a professional private guide across Africa, exploring wilderness areas from Uganda and Rwanda's mountains, jungles to southern and eastern Africa and Madagascar. As a Sony Alpha ambassador specializing in wildlife photography instruction, Rich combines his guiding expertise with photography workshops and gear testing while using his imagery to promote conservation awareness. Thank you so much for being here today, Rich. Take it away.
Thanks, Brooke. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This is one of my favorite topics. I just love the gorillas. Brooke and I were just having a chat before we came on that I have one more trip this year, and it is to the gorillas. And it's the perfect way to end a very busy, busy year. And for those that can't join me on that trip, I'm excited to share this presentation with you to educate you a little bit about the gorillas, where they came from, where they're at, what's happening, and to also just share my love for it. So to start off, I would like to get a video going for us. Quite a wonderful way to bring in this amazing topic. Mountain gorillas are one of those creatures that just defies the logic of a wild encounter. As a safari guide, I've spent many years around the big five, things that can kill you, walking with rifles just in case, really having to read animals' behavior. And it doesn't mean that gorillas are not dangerous, but through a lot of process, people have been able to habituate these families. It takes normally about 2 years to habituate a gorilla family to a state that tourists can come in and be part of the system and be around them. And over many, many, many years, we've been able to get closer to them. Let's start off with where they came from. Gorillas are very closely related to us. There was a split off between us and the gorilla family, and then from there we split into chimpanzees and humans over here. And this split means that we share about 98.3% of DNA with gorillas. But there's not only one type of gorillas, there's actually two bigger groups of gorillas. First of all, we have the eastern gorillas, which are our growers gorilla, or and the sorry, this message keeps popping up, or the mountain gorilla, which is the one we go visit on our trip. But less known, we have a cross river gorilla as well as a western lowland gorilla. Now, these four subspecies of gorilla are all critically endangered. The amazing side of these animals is the fact that something like the cross river gorilla is so endangered that there's only around 300 individuals left on the planet. It is because its range is just in the north here, and it's critically endangered due to war and poaching that goes on in those areas. Western lowland gorillas, their very closely related cousin, on the other hand, have much, much more numbers. I mean, we're talking around 350, 360,000 individuals, but they're still critically endangered. Their numbers are plummeting really, really fast due to war, due to human conflict and habitat loss, and even something as bad as Ebola. Ebola has a very bad effect on these guys, and in these areas, there have been over the last few years a few outbreaks which have caused a lot of problems. For our eastern gorillas, our grouse gorilla sits at about 6,800 individuals, so more than the mountain gorilla, but also critically endangered because their numbers have dropped quite hugely due to war and poaching around their areas, being in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And the guy that we're going to speak, or the group we're going to speak most about, is the mountain gorilla. Gorilla berengii, critically endangered, but their numbers have gone up hugely. We've gone from around 650 odd in 1989 to about 1,012 now, as of the last census. And I'll explain how the census works a little bit later. But you can see here how the split, the western lowland gorilla versus the eastern gorillas, how the habitat has changed. So as we move through time, the habitat for the eastern gorillas dropped hugely, and then we had the split across the river, the Congo River, which meant that the cross rivers were cut off and brought into these different things. So our growers are kept in two little spots over here, and we have our Bwindi and Virunga mountain gorillas, which are stuck in two little pockets in the rainforests of Uganda and Rwanda. This is one of our very beautiful Bwindi mountain gorillas, and they're slightly different in look to our gorillas that we find in Rwanda. You can see in the image here, let's just bring these two next to one another. You can see how the ones in our Rwanda area on the right-hand side have a lot more hair. They look a little furrier and bigger because they're at a higher altitude than our ones in Burundi. And here's a last map just showing how small the Cross River gorilla on the western side here versus their western cousin over here. And then our mountain gorillas are stuck in these two little spots down here. Now, how do these guys differ? It seems weird, but because of their habitat and because of the habitat loss, we've created effectively one subspecies which will eventually become two subspecies. So this will grow, and very much climate and location have a lot to do with this. Effectively, where we're sitting is that our Volcanoes National Park, so the ones in crossover, the Virunga Massif crosses over effectively the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, and Uganda all share the Volcanoes National Park. and there's 5 volcanoes, and these gorillas have free reign to move up, and we don't. So each country keeps their own space, but their altitude is anything from about 8,000 feet all the way up to about 12, 13,000 feet at an extreme. Very differently, though, for the ones in Burundi, in Uganda, there's a small pocket. It looks a little bit like a chicken, but they're in what we call the impenetrable forest. So because the volcanoes, which you can see in the background here, it's quite far away, about 80 miles away from Burundi itself, because they're so high, they move into a montane forest terrain, so that things start opening up. We get above the tree line. We're into bamboo forests and metal fields because of the altitude. Whereas Burundi, being a much lower level, which is probably from about 3,000 to about 6,000 feet in height, this is a very, very dense jungle. It is called the impenetrable forest, and it is for this exact reason we've walked in there with machetes and had to cut our way through and create new pathways in order to get to these things. It's a very beautiful space, and this is the view from one of our lodges when we're at Burundi. Our places that we stay in are like tree houses. It's really, really, really pretty. But the biggest difference between the two is effectively diet. Because of the mountain gorillas in Burundi are at a lower altitude, they have more trees, they have more fruiting trees. So they'll eat figs, they'll eat all sorts of different fruiting trees. Therefore, they'll be up in trees a lot more, moving around from place to place to feed. And this also then impacts how far they move in a day. These guys can move a lot further in a day because they may move from one fruiting tree to another, which could be a mile or two away from each thing, where something like in Rwanda, if you're moving from one nettle field to another, there's a lot of nettles in a nettle field. You may not have to move all that far. But also, that being said, because you are in a denser jungle, you often have this really cool feeling of being in a forest. There's just something about being inside Windy that just fires my soul up like nothing else on the planet. You're walking through, and if you can get into the forest early, and it just depends on the day and which group you get, you have these streams of light that come through into the forest, which give us a very different feel. Here you can see the silverback all the way up in the tree, along with a youngster climbing to get to its mother at the top here to feed on figs. But there are also nettle fields in these areas. And these are great places to view them from because there's not a lot between you and the gorillas. So you get to be able to be there, keep a safe distance away from these guys, and view them and be part of their world without having too much impact. Sometimes when it's a bit denser, there may be a little bit more closer encounters. As you can see here, this is one of our great treks that we did. When we're trekking up, we do not wear masks, but when we're in with the gorillas, we wear masks because of that 98.3% shared DNA that I was talking about, which means that we can pass on our diseases to them. So in order for you to get enough oxygen, we keep your masks off, but when we get into the sighting, we'll open it up. You can see how different the terrain is here. You can see these open areas. These are all these big trees in the back, or these big bushes of bamboo. The gorillas love the bamboo. They love coming down and eating this bamboo, which the Burundi gorillas do not have access to. So those in Volcanoes National Park will eat this bamboo, especially in the shooting seasons, which is the beginning of the rainy season, where the bamboo shoots start pushing through. And that fruit that I said was a very important big part of everything. Here again, you can see the views that we get. We get really close and beautiful encounters with these guys. But again, the hairiness is what I want to pull everything towards. They've got a lot more fur because when you start at 8,000 feet, things are cold. It's you losing the tropical nature of where you are, and it can be very cold, and it's a rainforest, so it can be cold and wet. I've taken guests in there that are absolutely shivering at the end just because we had a big downpour and everything came. Here you can see how the idea of the book Gorillas in the Mist, which became a movie, can come along because you're in these high montane areas, the cloud cover pulls in, it starts to rain, you have these misty terrains. It's really, really stunning. And again, here we got some on top of bamboo. So your landscapes are a little bit more rolling and flowing, which allow us to get a better view of everything in a smaller way. Also, they've been habituated for a bit longer, which means that these guys are maybe a little bit more chilled than those in Uganda. Family life is an amazing thing. We call groups of gorillas families or groups, but I prefer a family because they're treated as such. There is an alpha male who is a silverback, which will be 12 years older. Every male will turn into a silverback so long as he lives for 12 plus years. Eventually, what happens is the back starts to gray and gets very silver. And by the time they reach about 15 years, they have the full silver patch. So here's one of Big Daddy, one of the families in Uganda, having a sleep, doing his thing, watching over his family. And very often in these sleepy times, you'll have all the females, especially those with his babies, will come and keep close to him because he's the protector of the group. He will do anything, and I mean anything, i.e., give up his life in order to save his family. And they're so close and so connected to everything that they're constantly sitting there. We'll talk a little bit more about calls. These guys, when they're lying there, will give this, which is a little guttural call that happens. And basically, he's calling out to everyone and listening for each of the ladies and the blackbacks to call back so he knows where they are and so they know where he is. As a big silverback, he has this important role to show off his strength, to make sure that everyone knows he's the boss. Question we always get is, can we look a gorilla in the eyes? Yes, you can. 100%, no problems. They have no problem with it. You're not having a staring competition. It's no issue. Except when this guy decides he's going to show his strength. Here's another big guy walking past. This one's in Rwanda. Look at the size of him. Now he's walking past. He's having a look. He's doing his thing. And the next thing he decides he wants to show he's strong. He has these two laryngeal sacs, air sacs attached to his larynx that go into his chest, and he will start to inflate them by going and he will then do his chest beat. Now, we've all seen this from King Kong, and we all think that it sounds like a drum, but it actually sounds like little bubbles popping, like bubble wrap popping. It's like a sound, and it is incredible to hear it permeate through the forest because sound obviously goes further than what sight does. So you can hear this happening as you're going into a trek, and it's quite something. And that, when he does that, our first reaction is get small and look away. That often means that we're looking at a phone trying to photograph the damn thing because it's so cool to see something like that. Now, his job as the protector is to go along with the family to show them through and take them to the best feeding areas while keeping all other males away. Now, the reason why he wants to keep all the other males away is because if a new male takes over, it is highly likely that any of these smaller infants, anything under 1 year, will probably be killed in a form of infanticide. This brings females back into estrus so that the new silverback can be part of it. So his job is the protector, not just from other animals that may come along, not just humans, none of that, just to keep other boys away. And when a group grows, you can imagine that he has a mixture of babies. Now, in terms of baby life, the females, let me get a female, there we go, they have a gestation period which is almost exactly the same as ours, 8.5 months to 9 months, and they will have this baby and it will stay with them for around 4 years before they have another one. There's a lot of grooming that takes place in the beginning. The mom has to carry it. I remember one occasion that I was with a baby that was 4 days old, and the first time we went in, she would not show us the baby. The guide said to me I had to split the group in two, so one half of our group went with one group of gorillas, another half went with another, and I stayed with one, and then we were going to swap the next day. Because it was this tiny baby, the second day I was going to take the next group. So the first day we went up, we're looking, the baby's there, but the mom's just hiding it. Every time I go around, the local guide's like, Rich, you know what you're doing, off you go. I try getting to a spot, she just turns it back. She just kept on turning away. The next day, same guide, same place. He was like, go again. I'll bet you she'll be good with you. So off I went. I got a bit closer and I sat down, and she just turned and opened up and showed the baby and allowed me to get all the guests in to get this really beautiful view. And he attributed it to them understanding, or that specific female knowing that I was there the day before, and she was cool with that. These babies, as they get older, start to be more playful. As they get older, they'll move away from mom, do their thing, start climbing trees, playing with each other, beating each other, doing all the things that kids do, just like my little rugrats do all the time. Sometimes it'll be fun and happy. Other times it'll get to the point that somebody's crying and running back to mom. And sometimes they have to be disciplined. And you watch the females coming in and pushing the one away or picking the baby up. There's a lot of similarities that can be drawn as we go through it. But like I was saying, there's going to be a mix. You're not just going to have all females. So you're going to have males, and these guys can live. I mean, a gorilla can live for 40 plus years in extreme circumstances. Normally between 35 and 40 would be a good, healthy average age. But in that time, the female only has between 3 and 4, or raises 3 to 4 young ones to adulthood. But some of those are male, and they can get to over 12 years with their father there. You know, if he took over at 15, we do the mathematics, it's hugely possible. And a lot of the times in Rwanda, we find bigger families like that with multiple silverbacks. There's one family, the Agasha group, that has 7 silverbacks. I believe that this year they actually split apart. But you have that much competition that goes through. There's always the big daddy who is the dominant, who will do things, and he can succeed his leadership role to his eldest son. But for the most part, males will then move off. And this is where that silverback plays a role, because if he's not looking after his female, those females can get pinched. So what will happen is the new male will walk off, look all cool. He thinks, okay, cool, I'm 15, I'm looking sexy, I'm like a 20-year-old. And he goes shopping to each of the gorilla families and tries to steal one and create a family of his own. Now, there's one guy that they call Mr. Handsome in Rwanda. He has managed to steal 10 females. He is the fastest growing family. He's absolutely beautiful. I think if I were a female gorilla, I'd probably follow him too. Um, but as they grow older, the females will look after their little ones. These guys spend about 25 to 40% of their day feeding, and can eat anywhere upwards of about 45 pounds of food a day. Plants don't have a lot of energy in them. They've got slow processing. These guys have to have the necessary gut bacteria to break it down. So you often see they look pregnant because they have these big bellies sticking out, but it's actually a lot of gas. And it can be a lot of fun to sit with the gorilla family when they start passing that gas, and everyone starts looking around going, that wasn't me, no, it wasn't me, was it you? And then you realize that it was actually the gorilla. They live in these family groups and stick close together. And one of the coolest things that makes them a higher primate is the fact that they have tool use. And one of their tool uses is creating nests. So every single evening, they will create a new nest. Every single one of the individuals, except for the babies under 2 years old, they will sleep with mom. And when I said that they had counted that there was 1,012 gorillas, they do this census by counting nests. So we are trying to understand what's happening. And every morning before they leave the nest, they generally poop in the nest. So it leave behind a DNA profile. So the gorilla doctors or the people doing the census will collect the dung. They'll be able to get genetic samples from each of them. And by counting the nests, we'll be able to count the families, which is a great, great thing. And these nests are a form of a proto-tool or environmental technology, which is for comfort, one. And it's interesting to watch them build it. They'll build temporary nests during the day when they want to have a nap, just crunch some branches down and put it over. And oftentimes when we're sitting with the gorillas, our porters will come and create a little nest for us to sit in if the gorillas aren't moving anywhere. They also help to create insulation, keep the nest a little bit warm from the cool ground, especially those for the higher ranging Rwandan ones. Now, like I said, the reproduction rate is pretty slow and not moving at a crazy rate. So the protection of these guys has to be really good. And this is where our tourism comes in. And we'll talk about more about the conservation side of things. But with us going there, a lot of people feel like we're intruding. And yes, I would agree there is an intrusion that happens, but it happens for a family for 1 hour a day, full stop, 8 guests maximum, and then you move on. Those gorillas have the rest of their day to themselves. They are followed by some trackers who stay with them just in case there's any fights or illness or anything like that, that they can call gorilla doctors in. And because of this, our rate of making sure that these gorillas are healthy is higher. We can get vets to them if there's a need because they're under constant guard. There's also less chance of anyone trying to be silly and doing any poaching at that stage. So what is a trek like? Depends where we are. This is windy, impenetrable forest. It looks pretty damn impenetrable, but it is amazing. The sound of bird call, the smell of the forest. I remember, this is quite a little weird story, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The first time I went gorilla trekking, I went into the forest and I walked these jungles, and I wanted the longest walks. I just wanted to be in the forest, and the experience of being with the gorillas was quite phenomenal. Blessed beyond belief. When I got home and I took my shoes out of the bag, I could still smell this forest on my shoes. Much to my wife's disgust, I was like, oh, smell my shoes. They smell like the forest. She didn't want to come anywhere near my shoes. I thought it smelled really cool. I kept on looking weird, sniffing my boots. But yeah, we've had a lot of counseling and we've got over that eventually. But it all depends. The walks are tough. No matter where you are, I've had 5-minute walks and I've had 4-hour long walks. We always have porters with us, which is a vitally important thing. One, for the community, because the community get resources and funds. We supply you with one when we do one with NatHab. And I always advise the clients to take an extra porter, one to support the community. And if the walk gets tough, you have a push and a pull. These guys will carry you through the jungle. And if you don't think you can get there, all you have to be is upfront and let us know that you can't walk there and you're willing to pay for a stretcher. Somebody will carry you to those gorillas if necessary. And on that note, I had a guest 2 years ago. They'd booked 2 stretchers, and I had the shortest walk of my life. It took us 5 minutes to get in, and then a minute and a half to get out because the gorillas had brought us closer to the road, which was quite awesome. When we're in there, we're always trying to maintain a distance. Like I said, the face masks are a very important part of this whole thing so that we don't pass on diseases. We're asked to keep about 30 feet away, but in a dense jungle, this is nearly completely impossible. That way, we try and keep the best distance we can. We stick to that 1 hour because the 1 hour is very important. The chance of passing on communicable diseases goes up exponentially after the hour mark. So that 1 hour point is quite important. Then the other thing is, because the gradients can be quite steep, both on a volcano or in Burundi, we can often be stuck on a slope trying to view these things. So trying to keep yourself balanced is another side of everything. In saying that, we can also find them sometimes outside of the forest. And they very often come in and try and get to the eucalyptus trees to feed on the bark. It's like gorilla chewing gum for them. This guy's name is Big Ben. I have seen for the last 10 years since he was about 3 years old. He's now a full grown silverback. He's second in charge in a group. But what makes him completely unique is the fact that he's bald on the top of his head. So we always know when we're seeing Big Ben, and it's very cool to be around him and to be part of him. But yeah, they do come out of the park, and as time goes on, and we'll talk about it more in conservation, they're trying to expand the parks to make more space for these beautiful gorillas. Like I say, sometimes those slopes can get pretty steep, and you can see by the camera angle that we're stuck on the slope trying to get open views. But there are moments where they're out in the open and we can really enjoy the time. The walk in is slow, it's beautiful. We take in the scenery and make sure that it's not a race. We're not trying to make anyone move any faster than what they need to. There obviously are time limits that we have to adhere to, and we try and make the groups appropriate to the distance that are traveling. So if the stronger walkers will be able to walk further, we'll give them a harder trek, and the easier walkers or the people needing an easier trek will also have that. We wear cool equipment that gets very muddy and very fun. We're slipping and sliding all over the place, and it is just too awesome. And we get to be part of the forest early mornings in a lot of occasions, which makes it super cool. There are times, like I said, where we get pretty damn close. And there are moments where they get closer than we intend because they don't know what the distance is. They don't know that they're supposed to keep that 30 feet away from us. And in saying that, sometimes we have moments that we get great shots that walk straight past us, and other times they just get really close.
Yep. Oh, wait.
You're okay.
You okay? Alexander, stand up. Stand up.
Stand up.
Stand up.
Stand up, John.
John,
And come
Stand
towards
up.
me.
That's funny.
So you can see that we get pretty close, and the experience is quite amazing. Remember, this doesn't happen on everything. I've done this about 130 times, so I'm going to have moments like that. But it's a great thing. Now, when we're walking, we also have other forest neighbors. We have our local communities that are often around and surrounding the areas, and they're also protecting their crops, especially in Rwanda, where we walk through a lot of fields to get to where the gorillas are. And these people are trying to protect their fields against buffalo and against the golden monkeys. So we often get great interactions with the local people, but there are forest buffaloes in these spaces, and these guys are something we don't want to be walking into too often. They can be very aggressive. And because of this, we have armed guards that we go in with, who walk in front and behind, just in case, who carry rifles to scare these animals off should there be an issue. There's never been one, as far as I know. The other thing, and I've had to steal a photo from World Wildlife Fund because I've never seen one. And one day when I'm big, I will one day see a forest elephant. It's a different species of elephant. They've got straighter tusks. They're a little smaller. Their ears are a little rounder, so they're not as Africa shaped as what the African elephants are. They were previously all lumped together, but these guys live primarily in deep, deep rainforests, and they do occur in these areas. And one day, I will get to see one. The other thing that is there are chimpanzees. Now, you can get in Windy 2 great apes in the same space, which is pretty cool. They are not habituated in Windy, so we often hear them rather than see them. I've only seen them once at a distance, and they were trying to tear through the trees at the fastest rate of knots to make as big a distance between us and them as possible. But when we do the chimp treks, this is what it looks like.
Welcome to Kibali Forest. We're in a rainforest. It's raining. Go figure it out. What a cool experience. We're now going to cruise through here to look for the chimps. It's a beautiful day. Thunderstorm overhead. We're all well prepared with ponchos, rain covers, all the rest, and we'll go see what the chimps are doing in this craziness. The rain's coming down harder and harder as we're going along. Just found some fresh chimpanzee dung, and hopefully they're not too far away. The rain doesn't bode well for them being on the ground. These chimps, between the rain, are up in trees. So it goes. We use what we use. And we're going back to a fig tree now where we initially found them. There's some shouting from that side, so let's go see what they're doing. Yeah, they're coming down. Come with me, come with me. We managed to find them. Patience paid off. One of the males came down. He was cruising around. He put on a bit of a show for us, a yawn. Just watching a young female in a tree that walked up. She was trying to get to him, a bit more afraid of us. Males are definitely more habituated in that way. And eventually she got around, he got around. They came together, quick mating session, and then off. Now the sun's out. It's a beautiful afternoon in the forest. It's wet, it smells amazing, the sounds are amazing, and we can head back towards the lodge.
No. So there are also golden monkeys in these forests, especially in Volcanoes National Park, which is it's an endemic monkey that is only found in those forests. They're as cute as a button, and on the last day we do a walk with these guys, and I can tell you, you will want to stick one in your backpack. We get all sorts of different primates, from Lahirst monkeys to blue monkeys to these black and white colobus and red colobus monkeys that we get to see along these journeys, as well as incredible bird life, from rarities to more common, but very cool to see nonetheless. And then lastly is the conservation. This is an area that has been highly overpopulated. Both Uganda, Rwanda, and Congo are very, very densely populated. Forests are being lost, and there's even a wall that's been built along here, and you can see the very defined line. When we're in Uganda, you can see a very clear line between forest and agriculture. And a lot of the times now we're planting tea on the edge because the gorillas do not like the high tannins. It's not easy to move through. So they turn around and go back into the forest, which keeps the human wildlife interaction down. Here we can see what the forest looked like. The dark green at the top here is what the forest was 1,000 years ago, then 100 years ago, now down to our last little pockets. So you can see how much that population pressure has put on these forests, and it's a big part of what we do. People are farming in these areas just trying to make a livelihood. And what guerrilla tourism is doing is bringing in millions and millions of dollars, which is able to substitute a lot of the subsistence lifestyle. It means that people are being created jobs where we have porters that are moving people around. And while it seems quite silly that someone would have to carry your bag or even want to change your shoes for you or help you put your rain pants on, these guys are on point and all ready to help. They just want to help you and make it fun. And this creates a lot of kick down through the system to make sure that we're in a good space, that these animals are worth more alive than dead, that that forest is worth more being there than chopped down in order to make another potato field. We also create these incredible jobs for guides where we have these madly intelligent people. We have our local guides, we have our guides that drive the guests around, and then you have your local guides which walk the guests through the forest who are well trained. And this is all has a knock-on effect to the environment, to the children that get to look up and have role models in their communities and make sure that everything is moving in the right direction. Um, there is the Ellen DeGeneres Center. Yes, there's a monkey jumping up on the left-hand side of this image. I can't seem to keep my feet on the ground. I'm terribly sorry. But Ellen DeGeneres built a wonderful research center in Rwanda, which we go and visit, which is a wonderful place to see. There's an interactive museum, which is really fun, but there's also laboratories for the researchers and libraries for the locals to be able to commit to. The museum is one of the best museums I've ever been into. They've got a full recreation of Diane Fossey's house that she had up in the mountains. They have a 360-degree museum. They got virtual reality goggles that puts you in a thing. There's so much to learn and be part of, and just a great addition to the system. And then once a year in Rwanda, they name the gorillas. They have a gorilla naming ceremony. The entire community comes in. So you have a couple of thousand people pulling in, and they name all of the younger gorillas that were born the year before, which is quite spectacular. But most important is the fact that tourism is having a positive effect, and pieces of land like the one in the back behind this little blackback over here, this entire area was bought by WWF. I didn't know it at the time when I took the photo, but it has been replanted with bamboo to expand the forest. And money that goes with the trekking permits is given back to the communities, is used to buy land back from the communities and help relocate them to better areas for better schooling, for better lives, while expanding the forest so that the gorillas have more space to live in. All in all, it's an amazing experience. I love it, and I'm ready for any questions, Brooke.
Thank you, Rich, for taking us on that virtual journey into the heart of the jungle there. And just like I said before we started talking, what I would do to join you on this experience. And I'm so excited for everybody who's been on or might be thinking about joining this exceptional experience with wildlife. All right, everyone, we do have some time for questions, like Rich mentioned. In the GoToWebinar control panel, you can go ahead and put those in, and we'll see how many we can get through until the top of the hour. So I am having a few questions here with a general theme about safety, getting this close to wildlife of this size. Could you talk about that a little bit further? How safe is it? Has anyone ever been attacked? And just anything you have on that would be wonderful.
Okay, so I mean the experience. I want to bring back these photos just so that you can look at them while we're doing it. These animals are in our minds because of King Kong super scary. These guys are the most chilled of all the monkeys. Yes, they can. They are huge. I mean, a big silverback can weigh 450 pounds. He is huge. He could snap you like a twig, but he doesn't because he has no need to. The habituation process that this goes through is massive. So when we were shooting the movie The Silverback, um, which I believe went out in the newsletters and everything, I'm pretty sure Brooke can put a link up to that. When we were shooting that documentary, the filmmaker Andrew and myself went in to do a habituation trick. So they've started doing tricks where the gorillas are getting close to that good point of being able to send clients, guests to, and you can spend 4 hours with them. But the reason why you can spend that amount of time is because you're never going to get much closer or as close as what you're going to get to a habituated group. And we got in there and we'd already done 4 treks. We'd done 2 in Uganda, 2 in Rwanda, and we'd come back to Uganda. We were walking. It was a crazy walk, sweat pouring everywhere. It was up one mountain, down another. It was awesome. We got in there and the gorillas kept a distance of 150 feet. We were like, okay, cool. And the guide was like, let's get closer. And I could see the gorillas were pushing away. And I said, guide, we were here for 4 hours. We've seen four different treks. We've got close enough. We've got great footage. Let's chill. Let's see what this process is about. So we went through, and over the next hour, the distance started to get less and less and less and less. And at one point, Andrew stepped around a tree, and there was a baby behind the tree, which nobody knew about. And it gave up off a little yelp. And the next thing, the entire family came careening down towards us to save the baby, at which point we all showed submission, basically saying, I'm sorry, and they all stopped. It was the first time in 100 odd treks, I'd done my 100th trek on that trip, that I'd seen aggression from these guys. Yes, there may be a push that happens because they're a little juiced up on some bamboo shoots, or somebody's in the way or something like that, but never any malice, nothing more than, listen, you're in my way, get out, and then they move on. It's beautiful to be with, and that's why I was saying in the beginning, it's weird for somebody who's spent time with lions and leopards and elephants and rhinos and buffalo that want to kill you to suddenly be with an animal that you're 10 meters away from and they're just chewing on their food watching you. In actual fact, I'm going to take it one step further and tell a story about what this means to them. And I'm the third party to tell the story because it was told to me by 2 other wonderful guides that I had in Rwanda. And they were following gorillas. It's not my story, but they were following gorillas with a group of tourists. And the gorillas were moving along and moving along and moving along. And in the gorilla language, I've given you a little bit, but there's a sound where it sounds like they're coughing, where they're saying, stay back. And they were following, and the silverback suddenly stopped and started chuffing. So the guides pulled the guests back and waited, and the rest of the family came past. And as they were coming past, he kept on going and kept on doing this communication back and forth between them. Quite incredible. They didn't know what was going on. Eventually, the whole family had gone, but the silverback kept staying and then kept looking at the guides and chuffing and saying, stay away. And he wouldn't move. So one of them decided, okay, I'm going to go a bit closer. And she went up, and there was a snare, a poacher's snare, that the gorilla had seen and was warning his family about. And he would not leave until all of the guests had safely been shuffled past, because he thought, well, in my anthropomorphizing, whatever way you want to look at it, he thought he needed to protect the clients, the guests who'd walked up there, from that snare. And he only moved off once the last guest had moved past. So go figure how safe you are.
That just gave me goosebumps. Oh my gosh. That
Crazy.
was a beautiful story. Oh, yeah. And I'm even getting comments in here. Yeah, wow, beautiful. That's phenomenal. I think you anthropomorphizing in that was perfectly fine because it seems like the intention was there and read and understood. He communicated the point. I'm sure that then the snare was taken care of after
Yes,
that, if that was
yes,
found in the forest.
100%.
Oh, cool. So we have some guests here that went on treks a little bit ago. It looks like around 10 years. And that is bringing up a question more about the longevity or the history of these family groups. So if somebody did go on a trek years ago, would that same family still be there, or has it evolved
Very
and
much.
changed?
Yeah. So, funnily enough, 10 years ago when I started this, there was a family called Nama Habanyanja and Rushaguru. And these two initially were part of one family. And then they split into two families. Now, Habanyanja has now split into two families because they got too big. So, yes, it does morph over time, but that base family stays the same. There will always be a change in things, but the families will still stick to one another but create offshoots as they get bigger and grow out.
Fantastic. Thank you. Oh, we're getting so many good questions here. Somebody just went on a gorilla trek this past what was it, June? Looks like June, and had an absolutely phenomenal experience. So glad for you for joining that and going. Um, this is a good question. Are there any treks where you don't see gorillas, or is it pretty close? I mean, nothing's guaranteed in nature, as we know, but is it pretty close to guaranteed that if somebody goes on a trek, they are going to see gorillas?
I've never not seen gorillas on a trek, but I've made it to the end of every trek. So the it's almost guaranteed that you'll see them. You can never say 100% it's going to happen because two families could have a fight and they run so far that we just can't keep up and we run out of time effectively. But your fitness going on these trips is very intentional. It is more up to the person's physical ability that will say whether they will get to see the gorillas because they may not make it if they're not fit enough. It is a hard trip. I've taken the oldest person I've ever taken was 94. He was an
Wow.
absolute trooper. The ability of people to get there, and we'll try our best to accommodate that. But I've had walks where we said, okay, we're getting the shortest walk, and we ended up walking for 4 hours, which wasn't the appropriate thing, and people have had to turn back. So that is probably the biggest reason why you wouldn't see a gorilla on a trek.
That's a very helpful explanation. Definitely thanks for that. They're there, it just might be a little hard to get to them. Okay,
Yeah, and
noted.
I think that's part of the charm of everything is the fact that you actually have to work. It's not a safari vehicle that you just
Yeah,
climb in and you get driven and you find the stuff. You have some big part to play in getting there.
absolutely. There's much more reward, I'm sure, at the end when you finally get to that amazing endpoint of seeing the gorillas. Could you talk a little bit about seasonality? Is there a certain time that is best to go? And like, does the weather vary from month to month, or humidity? Or could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, with pleasure. So in the rainforest, there's a rainy season and then a really rainy season. So you count on rain all the time, but there are times that are less rainy and those are really nice times to be around. So we build NatHab builds all of those itineraries around the best times to be there. Photographic trips more on the drier times, just so that equipment is accessible. But it is a year-round thing. You just don't want to go when it's the really wet season. Beyond that, you can be there anytime. As long as you're not going to melt like a sugar cube in the rain, you should be damn fine just going in there and being slushy and muddy and just being around them. I remember one occasion where we had a really rough walk, um, and I almost had to pick a guest up and carry her because she was just at the end of a tether. But we managed to find them, and we got there. And as we got in, the heavens opened. It was a massive torrential downpour that came down, and the gorillas all went and hid under these trees, and the guides let us sit under the same trees with them. So we were all hiding away from the rain in the same place, and it was a moment that you can't explain. Everyone just sitting there, no one really trying to take photographs, just being with the gorilla on a rainy day under the same tree.
Wow, you have so many stories. What I would do to be in Portugal with you right now, like I said, drinking a glass of wine on your back porch as we were before we started, and just hear all of your amazing stories, Rich. I'm sure there's just so many to go. Oh, and we're getting near the end, but we still have a couple really good behavioral questions that I would like to ask you. So,
Sure.
when families do separate, do they interact with each other or do they no longer socialize at all?
So no, there is definitely interaction. I've actually seen that Habenyanja group and they split off, come together and sit together, but then the silverbacks get a little agitated with one another because they're an extended family. There's no doubt that there's more of that. And as I said, the numbers have gone up quite drastically since 1989, and we're exponentially growing because as they get bigger, you have more success. So that roll on goes. The problem comes in is that the forest is only so big. The forest hasn't grown in that time. So you have a carrying capacity. And definitely with time, in the 10 years I've been doing it, you have more interactions between families where you may have families interact with one another and one run further away. So there is this interaction that starts playing a role. They still remember their family bonds, but the silverbacks will be the ones that will be trying to keep that distance apart. I even remember being in one sighting where we had the two families together and the silverbacks were having a little chest beat off, doing it every 5 minutes or so to show off and say stay away, and then he had his ladies here and the other ones there. The blackbacks were trying to penetrate the other family and see if they had any young ladies they could get stuck into. It was a trip.
Wow. Again, so many stories. This is phenomenal. And you, like, from firsthand experience, it's like, yes, they do interact, but the males can be a little jealous, which makes sense. You don't want another silverback taking your ladies. It sounds like they definitely
No.
are good at that, especially big handsome.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and I like this question. This is fun. So when with the nest building, are those ever shared, or is it like one nest per one gorilla per nest, or do they share sometimes? Do they cuddle up, or is it just mom and babies at most that might share?
One nest per adult. Only moms and babies under 2 years old will share a nest. Everyone builds their own nest. I don't know why they wouldn't cuddle. It's a weird thing, but yeah, one nest per family, per adult.
Yeah, because when you think of like other primates, where that's definitely a form of communication, is grooming and holding each other and stuff like that. So that is interesting that they don't do that. That's a
Yeah,
really good question.
it's
The more
just
you
one of
think
those.
about behavior.
Yeah, I mean, again, the grooming is a big part of their family life, and they do it all day. I mean, even in this photo here, that is grooming going on. The silverbacks grooming a female. It's very much part of their behavior, part of their lifestyle, part of everything. It's just that idea of, um, I think they're probably one of those fidgety sleepers, and everyone gets irritated with one another, so they evolved out of that pretty quickly.
Yeah, not to mention it sounds like a lot of flatulence on each other too. So
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. But I just get this picture of my kids sleeping in the bed with me. I think once they've had their kids sleep in there, they're like, I'm done. I'm sleeping alone for the rest of my life.
yeah. Well, awesome, Rich. Somehow this hour has already flown by, and so I will go ahead and wrap up the Q&A section and turn it to you for any last closing comments.
Thank you all for tuning in. It was beautiful chatting about it. I can't wait to get there in 3 weeks' time and be with these guys again. And I hope that you guys get to enjoy them someday soon or just enjoy these beautiful presentations. Thank you, NatHab, for allowing us to create these beautiful things for you all.
Absolutely. And thank you, Rich, for putting such a wonderful presentation and sharing your stories with us. And I would like to thank everybody who tuned in. If you're interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, give us a call at 800-543-8917 or send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are more than happy to help you. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and the replay will be available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.